Right, let's talk about Israel and Gaza and so on. There's a story here, Phil, BBC Online, that some aid was going towards Gaza from Jordan. It goes through the occupied West Bank, and then it's stopped and thrown away, basically, by protesters from Israel.
These are right-wing Israeli protesters looting or destroying, pulling the food aid and the other aid out of the lorries and the trucks going in to provide aid in the Gaza Strip because they don't want the aid to get to the civilians there. I mean, I don't know about you, Angela, but sometimes I just feel ashamed to be Jewish. I mean, the callous disregard to the civilians in the Gaza Strip by in this case, people in Israel, but obviously the Israeli military as well, is just beyond belief. It's a war against civilians, or they just disregard the fact that there are 2 million civilians there.
I don't think you take the same view.
Well, I've, as you know, I've recently come back from Israel. I don't know when you were last there, Phil, but I've been on the ground. I was there on October 7th and I was there now. And I can tell you, first of all, that was an unverified report. And I certainly don't endorse it if that did happen. And there
it's not an unverified report.
It says in the report it's unverified.
I think the footage is unverified, yeah.
So it says it's unverified. And also there has been massively verified occasions of Hamas looting and preventing aid going into Gaza. And part of the protest is, what is the point if it's just going to go to Hamas to help consolidate their position? Now, I have to tell you that it is manifestly clear in Israel and amongst the Jewish people, and I'm grossly insulted by what you said, is that this is not a war on the innocent people of Gaza. I have said this repeatedly on this and other programmes. If you'll allow me to finish, this is a war against a terrorist death cult on the border of Israel that threatens its destruction, the destruction of world Jewry and anybody that upholds Western values.
But how in the process of that war have we seen, what is it, 30,000
Again,
the
numbers.
You don't believe the numbers?
I don't believe the numbers.
Well, how many do you think have died? Because it's obvious the whole place is rubble.
Right. Okay.
We see people, civilians, being pulled out dead and alive from the rubble. We know that nearly over 1 million people are starving. There's no water. There's no food. We don't support Hamas. The idea that any sensible person would support Hamas. I'll finish and I'll listen to you.
Sorry.
My objection is that there's a callous disregard for children and women and civilians in the Gaza Strip who have not waged war on Israel. It's a callous disregard, and they are being killed. Maybe 100,000 dead and wounded. In this country, that would be about 2 or 3 million people, the equivalent
Angela.
in Britain.
Okay, first of all, the sanctity of human life is a central tenet of the Jewish faith. And as a Jewish person,
that's why I find it.
That. Well, I'm ashamed that you don't check your facts properly, Phil. I really am.
What have I said that isn't factual?
Because I've just been to Israel. I've spoken to parents whose children have been drafted, who are in Gaza. They're not reading it from The Guardian.
Though, right?
They are there. They've gone in.
Yeah, but you weren't in Gaza.
But I wasn't. But I've spoken to people. I've spoken to somebody who was serving in Gaza.
But you said I should check my facts.
Hang on, Phil.
Who I've known since they were little. They have no reason to tell me a skewed version. I've spoken to young soldiers, and they said they send in leaflets, they give them warning. They are not trying to kill or randomly maim or murder people in the way that Hamas are. I'm not suggesting that there haven't been thousands of people killed, and every single one innocent person is one too many. With an uncontrovertible truth. Rockets have fallen on Gaza because Hamas have misfired. Thousands of those people are terrorists. It doesn't condone all the innocents that have been killed. But Hamas secrete themselves in civilian-heavy populated areas. They do it and they treat them as human shields.
You think
Israel does not want this war. It wants the war to finish. If they return the hostages and Hamas laid down their arms, it could be finished.
The war is unwinnable,
afternoon.
Angela. There's been a wanton disregard for civilian life. They're not going to win this war. This war is a recruiting sergeant for the next generation of Palestinians to do it again. It's so short-sighted. I want peace in Israel as much as you do. This war is utterly short-sighted because the way they're carrying it out is just causing more and more people are being killed.
Phil, answer me this. Why do you think, can we just try and read Hamas here, if it's possible, why do they hang on to the hostages when the result of hanging on to the hostages is that around them they're seeing women and children dying?
Why are they doing that?
Why do they hang on to the hostages when their own people are suffering?
Because it's the leverage they have. I don't support Hamas, but that's the main leverage they have against the country that has the most sophisticated. I don't support Hamas, but it's asymmetrical warfare, and we all know what that means. Can I just finish? Against the country with the most sophisticated military in the world. Of course they're going to do the dastardly things they do. I don't support Hamas. I just object to Israel's blatant disregard for civilians.
Is there not... I mean, Gary Lineker I saw the other day saying something that it was... I know you roll your eyes, but he said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It may be right, actually. Put the whole thing together.
Gary Lineker, who remained astonishingly silent on so many other situations around the world and is cherry-picking what he wants to say and when he wants to say it, which he is entitled to do. But the issue is that this is a war that Israel did not want. If thousands of terrorists had stormed Glastonbury and killed 1,200 people there and in the surrounding villages.
I cried when I saw it. I cried when I saw it.
Well, that's very kind of you to cry.
Not kind. It's an emotional reaction to it.
Because it is a war, and there's a very important point that has to be made, Jeremy, which is overlooked all the time. Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005. Hamas were elected in 2007. They were the governing body who had a responsibility to their citizens. They knew, given the sophistication of Israel's technology and military might, there would be reprisals for such a horrific and grotesque act of terror, unprovoked, and they still did it. So if you want to point the moral compass somewhere, don't point it at Israel, who has a right to defend itself in war, as Britain did during the Second World War.
In a humane way, in a humanitarian way.
In Dresden and all the other things. Look at the number
what
was the difference?
People who suffered the Holocaust, it's beyond belief that their disregard for human life is appalling.